about love. Every love is bound to maintain it. You got to knock the legs with an eye. Don't throw a stone, you don't know. It's not what you say, it's what you do. Don't throw your stone.
Hello, welcome back to Out on That Line. This is track 6. My name is Jeff with my co-host Alex. Alex, how are you doing this week?
All things considered, I didn't get stabbed by a Swiftie, so I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, it seems like we avoided the shrapnel for the most part. Think some feathers did get ruffled, but it's the business, baby.
It's just, we didn't get into the podcasting business to make friends, all right?
Yeah, just money.
Yeah.
Which will come sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as we keep hustling, grinding, insulting people's taste in music, it will come.
It will come. We'll get there. I mean, just look at everybody that's in popular news right now. They got there by hating on people, so we'll get there too. This week we got Whiskey Myers, their self-titled album that came out towards the end of last year, as well as My Morning Jacket, The Waterfall Part 2. Two albums that I hadn't listened to. Had listened to plenty of My Morning Jacket in the past. So that I was familiar with them. Whiskey Myers, strangely, had never really heard anything by them. But we're going to start with them. So with this, if you're not familiar with Whiskey Myers, they're definitely, that kind of heartland, southern country rock group. The first song called Die Rockin', I mean, you couldn't really get a more clear message than that. It almost struck me as kind of like a baby Blackberry Smoke. I don't know how you felt about it.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, absolutely. I have written down Blackberry Smoke, Turnpike Troubadours, Chris Stapleton, in parentheses, voice, Jason Isbell, Black Crowes, Tom Petty. Again, they're another group that wears the influences on their sleeves. I can't pin down who writes the music either. I looked it up, and I could not find a consensus on who writes these songs or if they all contribute.
I think they all write songs, and then they all kind of bring what they've written to the table, and then they all build them together, from what I understand. This one, actually, this first song was co-written by Ray Wiley Hubbard.
Yes.
So I don't know. And Uncle if people Ray. Aren't familiar with Ray Wiley Hubbard, he is kind of a lesser known country guy because he's really weird, like very weird. I think his most popular song is Snake Farm.
That fucking Snake Farm song that Matt Reno made me listen to.
Yeah, it's really good. That Snake Farm is actually close by to Austin, Texas. I remember driving by a snake farm one day. I was like, I wonder if that's the one. Because he's really good friends with Willie Nelson, back in the day, Waylon Jennings, so he's part of that kind of outlaw country, like the original ones from, the 70s, that like John Prine came out of and all that. So you can tell I tried to break down which songs I liked better based on who wrote them, but I feel like they all had hits and misses depending on who wrote which song. Mm-hmm. This one was kind of strong for me because it's just a rock song. When you hear the riff that started this one, and they certainly are good at rocking. When you hear the riff, I kind of don't really worry about the lyrics as much. These are just your pretty typical rock and roll lyrics, that the name of the song is Die Rockin'. I'm going to rock until I die. I'm going to die rockin' is basically the whole chorus. So, to me, I was like, it's a good rockin' song. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's pretty much like opening the album. It's the mission statement. We're born to this. We'll die doing this, hopefully. And there's a lot of like little tribute nuggets to some of their forebears. Like you definitely hear like references to the Stones and a hotel in California, obviously the Eagles. Mm-hmm. So it's fun how they kind of drizzled a little glaze of their inspirations on the song. So yeah, as an opener, it functions pretty perfectly. And I will say off the bat too, this was a listener submission, and I want to put this out there for all future listener submissions. When we talk about something, it is in no way a reflection on you or your taste. It's just our reactions to things. That's like my inner paranoia, my inner self-worth is like, you have to explain that none of this is personal, which sounds like I'm going to hate the album, which, spoiler alert, is not the case. But I just feel like it needs to be said so that when people give us stuff, don't be afraid to feed us, because we need the material. We don't live to shit on it, and we're not going to go easy on it just because you guys suggested it. Like, hopefully you're trusting us to give you the straight dope. Does that make sense?
I think that makes perfect sense.
Okay.
And since you mentioned it, this one was submitted by my cousin Patrick. He and I have listened to music together, pretty consistently our whole lives. He's definitely the closest cousin I have in age to me. So, we've listened to a lot of Sturgill. We've listened to, we've gotten into some things together. So he wanted to kind of present this to me. And I'm glad he did. This first song is really rocking. Like I think he knew exactly what kind of country rock that I'm into, and that's why he probably suggested this album. So this one got off to a really strong start for me. I really liked this first song. Now the second song, Mona Lisa, this was one where I started to get a little bit confused about where Whiskey Myers is coming from, because it seems political a little bit, especially verse 2. When they say they want to burn us in a nuclear war, you pay your tax, they only ask for more. My Mona Lisa, she ain't got no care. They've got the whole population in a red arms scare. So clearly political lyrics there. I don't think there's any other way to see those. But I wonder from this, and then there's a couple spots further along in the album as well, like what side are they coming in from?
That's the thing, is they are a technically excellent band. They are so fucking tight instrumentally. Like the music itself is great stuff. It's scorching. But the lyrics on these songs are super hit or miss. Some of them are like really evocative and very clear, and some of them are very like contradict themselves. And I'm like, and this is one of them, because like you're saying, I had the lyrics up too. The first verse, we got that love on a chemical level. A molecular attraction gonna last forever. Our enemies are only jealous of us. We got that gift that only comes down from the good Lord above. So that's setting up like a very intense, once in a lifetime, Vikings on a burning ship kind of passion. And then we go chorus, and then the verse you just said about like they want to burn us in a nuclear war, pay your taxes, they only ask more. Like I didn't make the leap with them across the chorus. Not really sure what's going on in this song now.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what I got out of a lot of the songs on the album. I mean, we don't need to hit on every single one of them, but I definitely was a little bit confused about the lyrics. It seems like their strength is the music, which is great. I mean, you can put that right up there with like Temperance Movement or Blackberry Smoke, any of those bands that are in this kind of a vein of music. They're as good as anybody. I mean, the lead guitar is really good. The solos are always pretty inventive. There's nothing that I felt like, it's all sounded familiar, but nothing I didn't want to continue to hear, as far as the music goes. There was no point in the album where I was like, I really wish I wasn't listening to this right now. It's just, once you look at the lyrics, you kind of wonder where it is they're coming from a little bit. I kind of wanted a little more clarity. Maybe listening to their other albums, maybe I can find that clarity, but for just this specific one, I wasn't able to really see where they were coming from.
Yeah, I'm with you. As soon as this one got cooking, I was like, all right. So
yeah, and again, not saying that it's bad.
No.
It's just it's when we're trying to really analyze these things, and really try to kind of unpack what they're telling us. That one made it tough, where there was no real context for us to really unpack those things to understand where they were coming from. So the next song though, Rolling Stone, this one I thought was pretty decent, as far as the first 3 songs on there, as far as the, lyrically, I felt like this one was the most kind of direct, it's your very classic, I've been out on the road, I've been out here for a long time. I'm getting real tired, but I'm coming home to you, baby. That's the kind of sense that I get from this one. But it is also a very good, like their melodies are good. The music is good. It's just, again, I think their main downfall is the lyrics sometimes.
Yeah.
This one definitely better than most on the album.
Musically, I got a strong Tom Petty vibe from this one from the onset. And that bought it a lot of goodwill with me. And then, lyrically, it felt like a correction from Mona Lisa because, like you said, it's well-worn territory, a transformative love that can take you off that life on the road and kind of provide you with a new path and respite from everything you've been through. And like so many people have written about that and how do you put your own unique stamp on it. But I mean, what do they say with Freud? Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Sometimes a song is just allowed to be a song about whatever the fuck it's about. and you can just enjoy it, and it doesn't need to reinvent the wheel. And like as this came on, I mean, I immediately wrote "ooh!" exclamation point. So, points in its favor right there. It was a good song. I enjoy it.
Yeah, and I think every one of the songs musically, there was nothing on here musically that I didn't enjoy. I think anything that I found with this album that I didn't like was when I was just confused about what they were trying to say with the lyrics, or when I could tell that they just didn't have a lot to say at all, that it might have been better served as like an instrumental song or something. But yeah, Rolling Stone was a decent song. Bitch. Now this one is one of those kind of rock and roll diss tracks that we've seen happen quite a bit that I didn't really think about. But the first verse is how a lot of us feel about country, and how you and I have spoken about today's pop country pretty often so far. Is I'm tired of the radio, same old lyrics, smoke shows, you're so country, we all know, tailgates and back roads, same shit, different day, ain't nothing ever gonna change as long as you know that you are still just a bitch in my book. So I don't know who he's singing about, but it's got to be one of these Luke Bryan or Jason Aldean. One of these guys that sings about tailgates and back roads and, red Solo cups and all that kind of stuff, so it's very, again, things that we've spoken about, but I don't know how many guys have, or how many bands have really kind of gone after their contemporaries like this.
Yeah.
Especially in this music. I feel like that's touchy ground to go on because they all tour together so much that the second you start ostracizing the most popular people in your genre of music, it's you might have a tough road.
It's precarious, but I also took a potential double meaning from that, because that was, at first glance, I was like, oh yeah, okay, he's calling act du jour, insert name here, a bitch. But then I really started thinking about it, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it. But what if he's singing about a girl that he was dating, also a country musician, but she's taking the complete opposite path from him to set herself up as like, a Casey Musgraves type. She's just going to get name dropped on the show to the end of time now. But like
always
setting herself up as a good, wholesome country girl who's going to sing Jesus Take the Wheel kind of shit and get on the radio and have, the top 100 conventional country career. And it's like, hey, you can dress yourself up like America's sweetheart and you can play this game, but you're still going to be that bitch that I knew. And, you're trailer trash, you're nothing, that kind of thing. Possibly, I don't know. Maybe that's just me, like, looking for something in this. Because I will tell you that as it went on, especially in the second verse, this was another instance of the lyrics becoming very word salady to me, to the point that the meaning kind of falls apart in your hands a little bit. Like, do you have the lyrics up in front of you right now?
Yep.
Can you hit me with that second verse?
Yes. Hand-wired, plugged straight in with the Les Paul, calloused over fingertips, rock and roll gets to us all. Tell me what's your draw out in Nijmegen, Netherlands. I don't know exactly how to pronounce that. You're stuck in a bubble, won't make it.
Yeah.
Again, like you heard that and it probably went in one ear and out the other because there's really nothing in that verse that sticks. The fact that they fit in Nijmegen, Netherlands, that was probably the most interesting part of the whole song for me. I was like, why the fuck are they talking about Western Europe? I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, it was like kind of like I understand like the point of the song, and it's I'm not like it was a bad song. It's just like as it was another like Mona Lisa as the song progressed. I was like, I don't know. I feel like the wheels are coming off a little bit for me in terms of what I'm supposed to be getting out of this. It's also kind of their phrasing too sometimes, and like as an Elvis Costello guy, again another perpetual name drop. As an Elvis Costello guy, he can bend the way that he phrases certain words, but he makes it work. And I kind of had the like when you're watching someone try to sing the national anthem, and you can really tell they're straining, and you wait for them to hit that high note. And you're like, oh God, oh God. Oh God, oh God, oh God, please don't be flat. Like you have that kind of feeling.
Yep.
Some of the stretching of the phrases, I'm like, he's not going to make it. He's running out of room in this verse. He's not going to fit that in. Like reading the lyrics while listening to the song. I'm like, oh fuck, he's not going to pull it off. And then he does, but it's a weird sensation to have listening to a song and reading the lyrics where it's just like this roller coaster of emotions. Like, how's he going to do this one?
Yep. And I definitely got the same sense too, but I will, as much as I might not like Elvis Costello Yet.
Yet.
And again, I feel like that's going to be a running joke too. Is that, everybody's going to be waiting for me to like Elvis Costello, and it just may never happen. It might happen, might never. You're just going to have to listen every week and find out. I feel like putting these guys in the same level lyrically as Elvis Costello. Maybe we shouldn't do that. I think I do know what you mean by him, stretching certain words out to get, the right amount of syllables to fit in with the meter of the verse that he's doing. But I felt like I could always really tell that he was doing that. There was always, you could really tell that he was stretching that out, and it just didn't strike me very clever. Like the Elvis Costello songs that I've heard. So that to me was, I don't know he doesn't do it quite as well. I feel like it's an apt comparison for just that, but I don't know. Elvis Costello finds a way to do that a lot better, I think.
It's just me speaking in the only language I have available to me, which is whatever Elvis Costello's doing.
And I see what you're doing. I just gave Elvis Costello compliments. I see what you're doing.
Slowly but surely, Geoff.
Yeah, I feel like I'm an ex machina right now. I can't trust anything. But we can move on to Gasoline, the next song. This one, again, another very political song, but I don't know what the hell they're trying to say.
I have that written down too, because the last line of the chorus is all I need is a Bible, a gun, and gasoline. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, is this again another Born in the USA tongue in cheek? Like, that's what America feeds you, is like, as long as you got a Bible, a gun, and some gasoline, this world is yours. So are they commenting on that mentality? Or are they saying, hey, as long as I have those things, I can weather tyranny? Because the song, like, as it starts, is like an abject condemnation of the dog shit America we find ourselves in. Like, just how perverted democracy has become and how tough it is to kind of live in these circumstances. But then, like you say, I'm not sure, like, exactly what they're trying to say about it. If this is from the perspective of the oppressors or the oppressed. I really don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And it might be that this is the classic, middle America has been forgotten about. Maybe neither side is what they're into. As far as politically, Republican, Democrat, whatever you want to say, maybe neither side, they just feel totally forgotten about. Their political vitriol is reserved for everybody that's in politics, not just one side or the other. They're just, we're struggling here. Nobody's helped us. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But again, like when you read those lyrics, like you can tell they're political, and I just don't know what they're trying to say.
Yeah.
I just don't know. So that one, Gasoline, like I will say my gut feeling is that they are on the other side of the aisle from us. Us being two very, very left wing, kind of more like Democrat, socialist kind of situation. I think from all the discussions we've had, I don't feel like these guys are on the same page as us, is kind of the sense that I'm getting. Could be wrong, could look into that a little more, but just from what I'm getting, I don't think they are.
Yeah, and that's I understand too. There's an argument to be made for like, hey, you guys on a burgeoning podcast don't get political, right? In music and entertainment, don't get too political. Although I would say, obviously, in recent years, that's changed quite a bit. So I can understand that there's like a prevailing wisdom to like, hey, don't wade too far into the fray and get lost up your own ass. But at the same time, it's like, then just don't say anything at all. Because releasing like a song that's either blatant fence sitting or too fucking obscure to figure out if that's what it is or which side it falls on, I don't think helps you either. I mean, on the one hand, you could be like, well, you guys are talking about it on your podcast, so they did their job right there. But I don't know. I do think it again opens up that conversation about like the responsibility of the artist to speak their mind authentically every time. And I'm not sure that this song gave us that. I'm not sure it gave us like it again felt more like somebody inventing a perspective rather than giving us theirs, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It seemed like they're just trying to throw a punch and don't really know where they want it to land.
Yeah.
Maybe, but moving on, Bury My Bones. Now this one to me, I think might have been like the biggest dud on the album because he says "bury my bones" a lot in this song. You hear it over and over and over. And again, I just don't think there's a lot lyrically. Again, like music was great, but lyrically, this one just felt real flat for me.
The music definitely really caught me from the get-go the first time I listened to it. And then when I listened to it some more, exactly what you said, the lyrics, the wheels kind of started to fall off for me a little bit. And it struck me as a song where I feel like they came up with the title first and then worked backwards from that. Bury my be kind of like, it sounds like I'm like really shitting on these guys, but I can only just be honest about like what my instincts were. And that was like in that moment, I'm like, it kind of feels like they said Bury My Bones would be a cool name for a song. So let's work backwards from there. Because again, you look at the lyrics and it's just like, hey, when I die, bury me in my hometown, bury me under the... And I like stuff like bury me down where its roots meet mine, like, the roots of the tree, my roots in my hometown. Like, that's good stuff. That's good salad. But I don't know. I think they get bogged down sometimes in a feeling that means something to them that isn't quite translating in the way that they're saying it. Because it wasn't like, bury me in this town. Again, pick a perspective. I fucking hate this town. Couldn't wait to leave. And now that I'm out on my own and I'm so alone, I would give anything to be buried in my hometown next to my parents. In the end, you do make your way back. Or we're jumping ahead a little bit, but there's one song about like, or maybe it's on my morning jacket. I can't remember. I failed the test of the small town. I never got out, and that's okay. So like pick a perspective where you embrace that. But this just felt like a lot of imagery that was put in there, under the pines, across the river, the Chattahoochee, whatever the actual lyrics were. Yeah. So I'm with you. It kind of lost the plot for me too.
Yeah. And I think if they, and I'll certainly go back and listen to more, of their music. Cause like Patrick and I have very similar tastes in music. So if he really likes these guys, there's got to be something that they've done that, probably will really speak to me. I don't think there was a lot lyrically, at least on this album, that did. But the next songs after Bury My Bones, Glitter Ain't Gold, Houston County Sky, A Little More Money, California to Caroline wasn't as crazy about, but Kentucky Gold, there's 4 out of the next 5 songs I thought were actually really good. Whether it was just musically and the lyrics weren't such that it took away from that for me, or I actually thought the lyrics were pretty good. Glitter Ain't Gold, I think is, kind of a stand, this is the one where it's like, I kind of enjoyed some of it. It's very on the nose kind of stuff. But I was raised by the wolves in the woods, not the streets, and it's saying that there's wolves in both places, but I come from this side of that, you know what I mean? So it's very much, I think does a better job of giving their perspective on where they're coming from. And I think it's most clear in this one of the songs so far on the album.
Agreed. Yeah, definitely. I did not love Glitter Ain't Gold. Again, the lyrics were a little abstract for me, but I did really love that line. I was raised by the wolves in the woods, not the street. That's, again, like there are these kernels of things in there that are really interesting. That comparison of like people who are really city smart and probably faced a lot of adversity growing up in a big city versus the adversity you face growing up in the holler. So that's really interesting. And that could be something you write with someone who grew up in Nashville or in Austin, that kind of thing. Because these guys are from somewhere in East Texas, aren't they? Like Palestine,
yeah, they're
Texas.
I think it's near like College Station where Texas A&M is.
Oh, gig 'em.
So it's really not too far away from Austin. And so I definitely am aware of, kind of what kind of countryside is out there, what kind of people come from there. It's very much like I said, gig 'em, like Texas A&M is a very, it's a farm school, like is what the A&M schools were, is their agriculture schools. So there's a lot more stuff there now, but that's kind of what it's based on. So you get a lot of folks that are from those kind of farming families, from more of the rural areas versus the big cities. So it's definitely a very specific kind of person that you see from that went to Texas A&M, and they all wear those rings. And I don't want to stir up big pot of stuff here, but it's so weird. that they wear the rings, and their symbol is just the thumbs up. Like gig 'em is like and then they just give a thumbs up.
Yeah, they
like,
just
that's such
took
a strange
the thumbs up. I used to do it all the time when I lived in Austin and I was doing Little Shop of Horrors because I'm just like a thumbs up guy. I transitioned to the peace sign sometime in 2016, but I was always the thumbs up guy in a lot of photos and stuff like that. And you just catch so much shit from Longhorns fans. Like, don't do the gig 'em to me.
Yeah. Oh, if you really want to get their grind their gears, you do the downward, the horns down instead of the horns up. Oh yeah, they'll get real mad.
Coach's wife come after you for that one.
Coach will come after you for that one. He'll cry in a press conference about that. That's just disrespectful.
That's just good, clean Texas humor, Geoff.
Yeah. We can move it right along here. Houston County Sky. This one I think was their best lyrically overall on the album. It seems like they really kind of hit a good pocket when they're doing traditional country.
Very much so. This is the one I was referring to too, failing the test of the small town, which is, you grow up in a place like we grew up in Vermont, and, can you get out? Do you want to get out? What does that look like? And in the case of this song, he made no attempt, never got out. And instead of being like, I work at the Jiffy Lube and fill up my truck for free, oh, woe is me, it's a perfectly average life that he describes, but there's such a beauty in the fact that it's like, I married my high school sweetheart, we get into fights, but we make up, we drink, we sing real loud, we stare at the stars out back. Like, just a very simple song that it's not trying to do anything more than it's capable of. I really enjoyed it a lot, actually.
Yeah, and I think lyrically they do a lot better when they strip things down. I feel like there's such a dichotomy between the lyrics that they do when it's a real like rockin' song versus this more stripped down kind of traditional country song. This one, it seems like and it's the same, this guy. So this is where I kind of looked into, I was like, well, maybe they have different writers that, focus on different things. But, this guy, Cody Cannon, wrote, and I think he's the lead singer, wrote this song, which I thought was very good. And he also wrote one of the ones that I thought was very bad earlier in the album. So it's very much, I don't think there's a specific genre that any of the people stick to, any of the writers of the songs stick to. I think it happens to be when they try to strip things down, do more kind of acoustic type stuff, that it comes out better. It seems like they make their voice heard a little more and a little more clearly than they do in the other songs. Absolutely.
And real quick thing, by the way, trying to do all kinds of different shit, even if you whiff, is fucking laudable. It's better than just churning out another turd because it works, again, in the top 100 country charts. So I applaud them for taking chances, and if it doesn't connect, it doesn't connect, but at least you fucking swung.
Yeah, and it seemed like they actually did pay some attention to the sequencing of the album as well, because the album started out with the real rockin' songs, and then this middle part is very much, kind of your more traditional country that you would hear, that you're much more likely to hear on like a random Wednesday or Thursday night at a bar here in Austin. It's just that very much singer-songwriter type of stuff. And they did these few songs pretty well. I mean, Little More Money, California to Caroline, Kentucky Gold, the next three songs after Houston County Sky. I think they really do kind of paint a picture, a little more of that kind of middle America, that struggle, especially in Little More Money. This one kind of gave me a little bit more clarity about maybe where they were coming from politically. And it's simply because it seems like they are sick of just being looked over. At least the people in the town. I mean, I think the guys in the band, they're probably not working in the coal mines anymore.
Right.
I think they made a pretty good career for themselves, but I think they do speak for the folks that are still in those areas where they came from. And I think this one gave me a little more clarity where they're just kind of pissed off in general, about being left behind, and maybe whatever politician decides to actually make things better is the way they would be politically leaning. But this one, I guess, was the most political song that I felt like I could actually get something out of and understand what they were talking about.
Yeah, I would agree. And to like specifically look at that cluster, Little More Money, California to Caroline, Kentucky Gold, it was like a nice little chunk within the album of like a quick zip through Americana. So in Little More Money, I think they reference Alabama, so you could set that one there. Obviously, Kentucky Gold is going to be in Kentucky, West Virginia, also referenced in the lyrics. California to Caroline, you get that kind of Laurel Canyon sound tradition in there. I really especially loved musically the sound of California to Caroline. That was I just really, really, really enjoyed what they were doing musically with that one. It didn't especially go anywhere story-wise, but that didn't bother me because, sometimes it doesn't have to. I have a tendency to think very linearly in terms of plot structure because my background's in writing for film and television. So it's always the 3-act structure and something that I don't think necessarily makes great art every time. You can write something that adheres to the hero's journey, the 3-act structure. It's, absolutely pitch perfect according to your screenwriting book. But if it has no heart, it doesn't amount to shit. So if you can break the rules in service of getting somebody to feel something, fucking go for it. And I think that's kind of what California to Caroline did for me, was it was structurally loose. It didn't really go anywhere message-wise, but why can't you just have a song that's kind of fucking around, floating in a pond, just reflecting on the way that you feel in that moment? It's such an abstract feeling anyway, so why do you have to put it down in such structured terms? So on top of the music in that song, it was just a really, really nice respite.
Yeah, I wrote down for that one, we're kind of back to the meaningless words as far as lyrics go, but still a very pleasant, breezy song. There's no part of me that wouldn't go back and listen to that song and enjoy it. The lyrics to me on this one, I feel like that's the thing, is I feel like they weren't really trying to send us a message here. So there was nothing to get lost in translation, really. It's very simple. It's all 4-line little verses. Then the chorus is also 4 lines. It's very much a very simple song as far as the structure goes, but it was nice to listen to. There's nothing more to be said about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I will say Kentucky Gold. I thought that one was, as far as, the strength of their lyrics, I thought this one was probably right up there. Just because it seemed like they got a little bit more clever. They kind of used a little bit more imagery, I suppose, is kind of the way that I look at that. It's definitely in the gospel choir in the background for the backing vocals. I love that. I'm always a sucker for that. Eric Church likes doing that. I'm a sucker for that when they bring that in. But this one, it's definitely, the creek used to run clear across the track till Peabody came and it all turned black. Peabody being the company that came in that found out there was coal in that mountain. The diamonds we dig in don't sparkle or shine, talking about coal, obviously, wasting away in a rich man's mine. So it's this sense that, they're being taken advantage of. They found this resource in their town, and this big company came in, it's like, I'm going to, you're all going to have jobs, we're going to do this, but they've ruined their countryside because they're saying the creek used to run clear across the tracks, and now it runs black. Because they've started mining all this coal. And as soon as all that coal's gone, the jobs are gone, Peabody's leaving, and they're back to square one, but without their mountain anymore. So this one, I think, is that kind of really classic story you hear about the West Virginia and Kentucky area, that there's so many of these towns that this has happened to. And so in our last election, coal miners were a big thing, because this industry was huge. And once that resource is gone, coal's not coming back into that area. You know what I mean? So once it's gone, it's gone. So these towns come up around that, built up around these things, and then there's nothing there. So now they've become dilapidated. Now there's no work for anybody. It becomes this just really picture of, capitalism gone completely wrong.
Yeah, and it's there are plenty of towns too where they'll put in a fucking paper mill that just stinks. You live your entire life, and I realize it's not the same as the danger that's inherent in coal mining, but you're just every day you live in a town I don't know if it was Gorham, Maine, or where I was, but was some town in Maine with a paper mill that just
I know exactly what you're talking about.
So
it's terrible,
fucking bad,
yeah.
And that is every day of your life. And I guess maybe you get used to it in the way that someone gets used to a bum shoulder that just never stops hurting, but that shouldn't be your quality of life. So yeah, I agree. It was this kind of interesting capitalism gone awry statement, but just how human and dire lines like I kiss my wife and I tell her if today is my last, just don't leave me down in that hole.
Yep.
Like, that's such a fucked up concept. Like, I might die in the coal mine, and if it's a cave-in, my body's just going to get squished. What are you going to have left to bury? It's like I'm not even a human. It's just like sending down a fucking, the canary in the coal mine. Like, It's such a horrible way to look at human life.
Yeah, it's a hard picture to really get into your mind, to really understand that. But like you said, yeah, that line, if today's the day that I should go, don't leave me down in that damn hole. It's very, very real. It's like, this is probably the most real emotion that we've gotten out of Whiskey Myers on this album so far. It's the clearest picture they've painted. And definitely the message could not be clearer here, is that, these folks get taken advantage of and then they don't get anything for it. They get a few years of paychecks that aren't even probably that great. And then their whole town is basically gone to shit because this company leaves and nobody has a source of income anymore. Yeah. It's just a really, it's a story that probably has happened in hundreds of towns that we'll never hear about. And it's just too bad.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So moving along, next song, Running. I thought this one was pretty decent. Again, one of those ones where it's, don't expect anything too deep and meaningful out of these lyrics, and you're going to have a great time with this song. Just the way they put it together. He co-wrote it with Brent Cobb. So I don't know if people are aware of Brent Cobb, but he's another guy that's in this same kind of country rock vein. Have you listened to any Brent Cobb?
It's not ringing any bells, no.
Yeah, he's one of the like kind of lesser known ones, but definitely it's decent. You know what I mean? So when you can tell when they're writing this song, that this is very much that country rock kind of just paint by numbers kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But again, doesn't mean it's bad. It's a good song. I enjoyed listening to it, but again, it's not, there's not a lot of things to unpack here. It's all pretty well presented to you.
Yeah, it's not reinventing the wheel.
Yeah, I do like the line, though. I do want to call this one out, and I don't know who's responsible between Brent Cobb or Cody Cannon for this one, but whoever it was, you did a good job. But fast as I could, I left the old hometown in a cloud of dust. I figured if I stuck around too long, I might turn to rust. I just thought that was kind of a cool, the way that Casey Musgrave said, we settle in this town like dust. Mm-hmm. You're just like dust, we settle in this town. It's that same kind of imagery where it's like, you use these things that you see it's in the physical world and you apply them to how a human being ages or how a human being acts. And it's just kind of a nice way to picture it. It's like they have to keep moving or, they're going to turn to rust. It's just kind of a cool image. And I thought that line was pretty sweet. Yeah,
I totally agree. And then, if I may scoot us on down the line for the next song, mm-hmm. You want to talk about clever wordplay. Jeff, what's this song about? I'm not sure I understood it.
I wrote down my my line that I wrote down on this one. It's the only thing I wrote down about this one. I don't think it's only about a hammer.
I wrote down a song about fucking. How quaint.
And using the hammer as the replacement for I'm going to just go ahead and say it, listeners, the penis. It's that kind of imagery where it's like I don't know how many of you guys have ever worked doing like physical labor, outdoor work with people, but this is the kind of language you hear when you work around a bunch of dudes. For better or worse, this is the kind of stuff that you hear, probably what you'd hear hanging out with Whiskey Myers, the band. There's nothing to really unpack in this one either, but had to be one of them on this album, huh?
But, and here's the thing, I always feel like the little kid on the playground who shakes his little wee-wee to get attention, like being crass. But I think the difference between a successful song like this, or like sometimes someone like Frank Zappa, to again reference someone who'll get referenced a million times. And I love Frank Zappa, but he'll just sit there and talk very graphically and on the nose about like the song Carolina Hardcore Ecstasy. The woman has a crushing fetish. She lays down a tarp and is like, stomp on me. And that's very plain. That's not metaphor. He doesn't use metaphor to express that. He just puts that all out there. So on this Hammer song, It's all these really clever little turns of phrase that you want to draw attention to because it is genuinely funny and clever. You just feel stupid for like trying to intellectualize the song that's about sex because it makes you feel like you have a one-track mind. It's just, no, I think considering the subject matter, if you're blatant about it, it's not as funny as when you can have a little tongue-in-cheek about it.
It's like with Tyler Childers' Ever Loving Hand.
Yeah,
It's that same kind of thing where it's like, you know exactly what he's talking about, but he's doing it in a way where it's like a wink and a nod. Like, we both know what's going on here, but I don't need to say it in plain language.
Yeah, right. And then you have like further down on that spectrum, you have like I Touch Myself or Clarence Carter Strokin', which are funny and they kind of toe the line where it's like they don't come right out and say it, but it's very obvious what they're talking about. But this one, I think they did some very puckish wordplay. Like there's something about like, I come in the kitchen and my wife's got a honey-do list. So get your hammer out and start banging or whatever the fuck.
Also, baby's in the kitchen, in a black bandana. She said, some things need fixing, so it's time to swing the hammer. It's... and again, it's like he is obviously talking about like some honey-do list kind of stuff, but he's really talking about some honey doing it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you could hand these lyrics to a square, and they would be like, wow, it seems like a very industrious young man who's just fixing the siding on his home. That's the kind of can-do spirit that gets you ahead in America. Or you could hand this to my dad, and he'll see 2 lines and go, that song's about fucking.
Yep. That's all he ever thinks about anyway.
Pretty much.
That and Jesus.
Yep. Jesus, teeth, and fucking. There's his country song.
Going at the last song on the album called Bad Weather. Now this one, again, there was a lot of these songs where I didn't have a lot to say about them. This was one of them. I was like, I have no idea what he's talking about, but it sure sounds nice.
Yeah, I mean, that's almost verbatim what I have written down. And I don't mean to offend anyone by saying this, but it's the only term I could think of, but schizophrenic verses in terms of like the first one seems to be talking about a wedding for a lost love, like going to an ex's wedding and she's the one that got away. Because there's all this talk about like the priest says, speak now or forever hold your peace. And it sounds like he doesn't speak. So he's letting someone get away. And again, you've got me there. I'm on the hook. And I'm like, oh, that's a fucked up feeling. That's really tough. And then the second verse, I'm like, I don't know. The point of view has switched. So it's like everything do you have the lyrics up in front of you?
Yes.
Can you read the parts in the second verse where it's like it references he?
Let's see.
I should have these up too. I shouldn't just be like, Jeff.
No, there's nothing specifically he. I'll just read through them. I mean, it'll take 2 seconds. That house on the hill, there's a prison. Spent too many years, turned to hell. Oh, how if those old walls could listen and hear me. Oh, how much these old walls could tell. As an old man, I know I should reason, but I could torch this old place, might as well. With a can full of diesel and a booklet of matches, let's see what these ashes unveil. So it sounds like when you hear that, it sounds like, oh, he's telling us something, like there's something to unpack here. But then you really try to think about it, and it's like, maybe I'm just dumb, but I can't find out exactly what he's trying to tell us.
Can you break us off a piece of the chorus too? Remind me what that.
Yes, the chorus. And the rain came down, washed away all that he'd found. What's the reason for keeping them around? Can't place them together.
That's what I'm talking about. All that he'd found. Who the fuck is he? Because the perspective from this has been I and me. And now it's he. You were also talking about a woman. So who's the fucking he? It just like jumped around a little too much for me to be able to stick with it.
Yeah, but like it just sounded good. It sounds like a good song. But when you try to get into it, like a few other songs on this one, there's just not much there to unpack. I think this one is the most actively confusing. I think the rest of them was like they were just very simple lyrics. There was nothing to unpack really. It just kind of is what it is. Like this one, they're clearly trying to tell us something, some real emotions, and I just don't know what to get from it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure either. So again, like musically, tight. Lyrically, little loose there, fellas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, and I can tell, like, I would absolutely see Whiskey Myers live. I would probably listen to this album again, not hate it. So this one I'm going to go ahead and say stream it. But this kind of music is exactly the kind of music I'd love to be seeing live after way too many light beers.
Yeah. I tell you what, I feel like you're exactly right, and these guys probably a rip if you see them live. They're probably really, really fun. So I will also give it a try. And I also, like, you shared with me the sentiments that your cousin Patrick shared with you, which is like, he likes the podcast because it's introducing him to music he wouldn't have otherwise found. I would not have found Whiskey Myers probably.
No.
I'm sure if I did like some really diligent log, some really long Spotify hours, I'd get there eventually. But it's not something I would have found on my own. So thank you, Patrick, for, giving us this to listen to. I think the beauty is you and I are going to teach each other a lot of stuff. The listeners are going to give us a lot of hidden gems. We can give it to them. Like, that's what's so cool about this. If I may toot our own horn for a moment.
Toot toot, baby. Yeah. Thanks, Patrick. I think this one was I think this was a pretty good album. I think we went over what we didn't like about it. But as far as musically, these guys are tight as hell. I mean, they're really, really good. Yeah. And I will definitely see them live, and maybe when I know they're coming around, Patrick will get you a plane ticket and get you down here for it. So moving on to My Morning Jacket, the Waterfall Part 2. So I am certainly have been familiar with My Morning Jacket. Jim James has also participated in the new Basement tapes, that, Showtime documentary where, they took Bob Dylan lyrics that he never turned into music and, did them themselves. So he was involved with that. So I've heard him in a few different instances. Also with Monsters of Folk, he was in that with Conor Oberst and a couple other guys. So he's been involved in a lot of different things musically. But I felt like this album was a very My Morning Jacket album. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, what do people consider the break too? Because their sound was very different up through, I want to say Z, but that might not be correct. But I know there was a point in there, I want to say at least around Z, where their sound changed quite a bit and became a little more engrossed in the psychedelia, and the dream pop and the dream wave, shoegaze kind of sound.
Yeah, they used to be a little bit more, they do a little bit of like noise rock. They do some stuff that was a little bit heavier.
That Highly Suspicious song, you've heard that?
Oh yeah.
Highly suspicious of you.
Yeah. And it's very, Jim James, the guy, he is the brainchild behind My Morning Jacket. I mean, very talented musicians that are along with him, but I mean, it's like Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. Like, My Morning Jacket is Jim James, like his vision, his thoughts, his music, like all of that. I think lyrically, it's always really kind of tough to unpack him. I think has always kind of struck me lyrically as like System of a Down, where it's like they don't tell you what the song's about, so you can kind of make it about whatever you want, like however it relates to you best. So it's like if you find a meaning in their song, it's going to be a very meaningful song to you. But if he ever came out and said what he wrote it about, it might not be at all what you thought it was.
Yeah, I would completely agree. And actually, as we get cooking, more of my notes are less analysis and more remember to tell a story that relates to what you felt when you listened to this.
Yeah, so we can get right into it. So the opening song, Spinning My Wheels, like this is kind of the one where it's like I knew I was listening to My Morning Jacket immediately, especially if you'd heard his stuff that he'd done with Monsters of Folk, the contributions he made to that new Basement Tapes album that they did. This one is very much that he sings in that kind of falsetto voice that he does for the most part now, and it's just that kind of psychedelic feeling to it. It's just I enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. It's an interesting, because the whole album, Waterfall Part 2 or Waterfall 2, is cast-offs from the initial recording sessions for The Waterfall, which I think came out in 2015. So it was just like run-off extra material that they had that Yim Yames was listening to on his like personal recording device when he was hanging out in his house during the pandemic. And then he just got to work and was like, hey, I mean, nothing else, like throw yourself into a project. So in the same way that old Taylor Swift did her cottagecore project, and then this wasn't him, or this wasn't My Morning Jacket making new material, but a project where you can kind of curate the things that you had already recorded and had nothing to do with. Mm-hmm. Now you finally have this opportunity. It like totally unintentionally, obviously, since they recorded 5 years ago. But Spinning My Wheels is like such a COVID anthem. Because it's just that like kind of sitting there, I'm spinning my wheels, just fucking stuck in here. It's another day. It's just like the day before. Tomorrow will be just like this too. We're trapped in a holding pattern. I'm just kind of spinning my fucking wheels. It's like a really interesting dream pop meditation on decay and arrested development and just kind of being stuck in place. So I thought it was a really great, like you said, sets the tone really beautifully to start the album.
Yeah, and it definitely, it kind of gives you the sense that you're about to go on a journey. You know, it's like finding a new day, a new way, a new day, a new way. Done spinning my wheels. You know, it's just, I think he says all these things where it's like, okay, now we're moving. Now we're going to move into something. You know, so it might be that kind of his decision to do this as a project. You know, might be what this is representing to him. But it was definitely, you know, I think a good start, and certainly, you know, right in the mold with all the other stuff they've done recently too. Going into Still Thinking. This is one of those ones where it's like, if you don't know exactly what he's talking about, it might sound a little bit like nonsense, but it's still, he's so good musically that the emotions at least come through here.
Oh yeah. And I mean, do you have the lyrics for those up too?
Yep. Can
you hit us off with the beginning of it?
Yeah. Walking in towards the fog, lip syncing in reverse. What a fool I was. Hold my head up. Oh my word, what a fool I was. A lone soul hanging off the corner of the edge of the world.
So I will tell you, this is a personal experience thing. This is almost no analysis of the song, but it's a compliment to the song, which is the second I heard this song, it was a fucking dagger, because I have been in... It was like he reached into my brain and was like, well, this is how I would interpret what happened to you. When I was in grad school, I was seeing someone, and apparently I was under the impression that it was a lot more serious than it was. And when I asked this person to make things official, she was like, oh, no, I mean, you have a year left in the program, and I'm moving to Los Angeles, so what would be the point in us spending the summer or any point after this moment together? So, no, clean break, I'm done, I reject you. And that was the exact, I just remember in the moment playing it cool and being like, okay, you know, whatever. Don't give anyone the satisfaction and just pretend that it's like the Ralph Wiggum, like the exact moment his heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. Like pretend that, like hide the pain and walk away. But I just like went into a fucking fugue state, and all I could think about was like, you just blew it. Like, what made you think that you ever had a shot, that this was ever going to end well, that this story ever ended in triumph for you, you fucking stupid loser. And I just ended up walking in a goddamn fog through Boston, and I wound up on my friend's doorstep, and they were like, what the hell's wrong with you? Are you like off your meds or something? I'm like, when did I get here? So it was a song that was very evocative of the way I felt that day, which was just like crushing defeat. And how do you pick yourself up? I don't think you do. I think you just kind of live with that feeling and stumble through that the way that it makes you feel. So yeah, I appreciate it on that level.
I think you just learn to recognize that a little better. You know what I mean? So it's like, if you get yourself in that kind of situation again, you know, and for better or worse, you're going to be more guarded in that, you know, so you're going to understand a little more that, you know, it's a give and take with relationships. You know, you can't just go in gung ho, assume that you know everything about how the other person is feeling. So I think that's something you can like learn from this, and something James probably has learned from it as well. So it's cool that you get, that's what I mean with him. You know, you read these lyrics and you're like, oh, doesn't seem like he's talking really about anything that specific. But when you leave things open-ended like that and open for interpretation, it allows us to really personalize those lyrics. And he's always been very good at that.
Yeah, I felt very seen. So I guess appreciated it on a selfish level. It's not very universal to be like, it's a good song because blah, blah, blah. But it has a lot of personal meaning to me. So I really appreciated it on that level.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's misinterpreted a relationship. You know what I mean? You're certainly not the only one to do that, and you won't be the last one to do it either. You know, so it's definitely a universal feeling, you know, which I think is pretty good. Moving on to the next song, Climbing Ladder, I really like this one. You know, he had that, you know, you kind of get that that sense of that kind of country music kind of sense. He's got like a pedal steel guitar in there. And that's the other thing about Jim James is like there is no instrument or musical style that he won't go to if he feels like it serves the song. You know, he's a very, very versatile person. I think he does have his focus in that like kind of dream pop and kind of more guitar based rock. But that doesn't mean he won't stray from that if he thinks that's going to serve the song. And this is one of those examples where it's like, you know, he's always been, you know, he's always kind of had that folky kind of influence, but this one just sounds like a straight up country song at some points.
Yeah, definitely. Do you listen to NRBQ at all?
Mm-mm.
Well, definitely listen to NRBQ, New Rhythm and Blues Quartet. I got a lot of their sound in this song. So, and I love NRBQ. So I was immediately on board with this one. It's just got this like super manic, bouncy sound. And I mean, Climbing the Ladder, it's got this very kind of persistent message and sound to it that I think just works beautifully. And again, like you say, Yim Yames can just, but I gotta stop calling him that. That's so stupid. But
no, I like it. He probably loves it too.
It's canon. Yeah, he's gone by it. So yeah, no, it just kind of is an opportunity for him to show off and show his prowess and what he's got under the hood. So yeah, I really loved Climbing the Ladder.
Yeah. And the way they play with the time signature in this one, it's like he just took, and maybe he did, I don't know. It's like he just took a dial and just turned it, slow it down, and then use that same dial to just speed it back up, like kind of in the second half of the song. And it's just, he's so talented musically that, you know, that was such a tossed off thing for him to do. But it just like, you hear that and you're like, wow, that was perfect.
It's those little details like that just transform the song.
He adds layers in. It's like, you know, I don't know if anybody listens to like LCD Sound System, where it's like you think you've got that style of music pegged, like you know what this guy is going to do. But then it's just you realize how many musical influences he's drawing from. You know, so it's all sounds like My Morning Jacket. You know, it's all My Morning Jacket songs, but you can hear those influences in there. So even if you're hearing the song for the first time, it's going to sound so familiar to you. You know, and he's just so good at doing that. It's almost like a warm hug that he puts you in sometimes when he does these songs.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I like it. Nice. Feel You. I think this one probably is one that's kind of the most direct as far as understanding what the lyrics are about. Clearly about a relationship that's like kind of unraveling, gone bad. You know, some lines in this one that are just very, I think, very personal and probably very specific things that happened when they were together. You know, Are We Undercovers, Raining Blood, REM covers Rain in Blood, and Rain in Blood, like the Slayer album. You know, those are very specific things that probably in a relationship that he's had, they probably listened to, you know, or did REM covers and listened to Slayer, you know, so I think this one's kind of more of a window into Jim James himself rather than him just like, here's these emotions, you interpret them how you want.
Yeah, for sure. I also just musically, what a fucking crunchy tune.
Mm-hmm.
So good. It's just, again, peak of the musical powers.
I got very, very Pink Floyd vibe from this one. Yep. Very, very much, especially in kind of the later half, like the interlude section, the guitar work. I mean, it just very much that kind of like Dark Side of the Moon, The Wall era of Pink Floyd, where it's just they started to, you know, they were kind of bridging that gap between like rock and roll and ambient, you know, and I think it was a good one. Yeah. I think crunchy. I like the way you described that. It was just, again, it's like, that's why Jim James and My Morning Jacket are so good. It's because they could be completely different things to like someone can listen to the same album and get two people can listen to the same album and get totally different things from it. That's, I think, why My Morning Jacket is so good. The next one, Beautiful Love, Wasn't Enough. I had a question. Is he talking about swinging in this one and how he's not really into it?
That's interesting to think about. I more interpret it as like, a man's inability to accept and reciprocate love. And I think maybe that's like a surface level interpretation of the lyrics, but I definitely got the sense of like a guy who doesn't really know how to let people in. And if he did, he wouldn't really know what to do in terms of like this person's expecting a reaction. It's like if someone tells this character in this song, for lack of a better word, hey, I love you, they're expecting to hear I love you back. And I kind of got the sense that this guy can't feel that love and wouldn't know how to give the person a satisfactory answer, and he kind of hates himself for it. So tell me more about the swinging interpretation.
So that, I think the confusion for me just is specifically in the line, well, you gave me the gift of another's love. And when you're saying it how you saw it, that makes sense to me, which is like, it's like an abstract way of like, if you and I are talking, it's like, I'm telling you that you gave me the gift of another's love. Another is you. To me, I was like, they were talking, when I first heard that, I thought they were talking about like a third party. So they were, when he said, you gave me the gift of another's love, like you allowed me to go get love from somebody else.
You gave me a hall pass. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he wasn't into it. So that, I feel like now that I'm reading the lyrics, like you are absolutely right about this one. And I'm not, I don't know why my mind was going there. But it just, I think because I'm just expecting Jim James to be a weird ass motherfucker, that I was like, oh, that makes sense.
But I think that's the beauty of it, is it's, the wordplay is open to interpretation. So you could, I mean, that would be a really interesting idea for a song of like, oh my God, I was so excited to, I got a hall pass, or we had a threesome or whatever on our anniversary. And it just like did not live up to expectations. It freaked me out. And now I'm questioning things. That's like as valid and as interesting an interpretation as whatever I said. So I think that's
we'll have to ask Jim James sometime. Was that song
Jim,
about swinging, Jim?
Jim, what's the song about? He's not saying.
No, we could call, I mean, if we call him swinging Jim, if he looks at us weird, we'll know it wasn't about that.
Swinging Yimmy, baby.
Yeah, that's how we'll know. The next song, Magic Bullet, this one I put like 5 stars next to. This song was kick-ass.
Yep, and maybe I'm off base, but I definitely got a police brutality and government corruption theme. I definitely got overall themes of like morality and desperate times, and the idea of the magic bullet. So obviously the bullet imagery, and I am a fucking asshole for not having the lyrics up, but something to the effect of, the bullet imagery starts off, and I think they call cops like, do you have the lyrics up for that or no?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's ain't no way to solve a problem of the streets with an itchy trigger finger, servant of disease. So I think servant of disease is a police officer.
Yeah, the disease of, call it capitalism, government run amok, tyranny, fascism, whatever you want to call it. I definitely read the whole, it's very like politically charged to start. How do you stay moral in desperate times? And the magic bullet. So we're talking about this bullet as an instrument of death, but also the magic bullet as a cure-all. There is no magic bullet that's going to fix a broken democracy, that's going to fix a broken justice system. So it's like an uncharacteristically despairing song that also is completely groovy, which is such a like weird, interesting juxtaposition. I appreciate it a lot because it's, again, that Born in the USA type thing where if you're not paying attention and you're just kind of grooving, it's one thing. But if you're listening to it, that juxtaposition makes it that much more horrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, it definitely, and just the kind of beat to this one was really good. So musically it was very engrossing. And then I think as far as like the lyrics go, this one again was very interesting. There was, you can interpret things kind of how you wanted to, but I do think the general message was, kind of a democracy in decay, being protected by these folks that don't deserve to do it. That don't treat the position they're in with any sort of respect. It's just about power for them, right. What they can get out of it. So I think, yeah, exactly. It's very much and if you're aware of Jim James as a person, he is a very liberal person. So, he's going to not feel good about the way things are going in the country right now, clearly.
Yeah. Did it sound a little sidebar for this? Did you catch like shades of "Come Together," the Beatles, a little bit in like
Yeah,
the way that
it
sounded?
definitely. I got Beatles, Pink Floyd out of this album heavy. And I think it's that kind of. He's really got a good kind of pop sensibility, which allows him to get really weird with songs because he's always got something very interesting that they're rooted in, at least musically. So I think and I think that like Come Together, like that era of Beatles when they started to get weird. I think that is very well represented here. I think that's kind of where he would fit in if you were to put My Morning Jacket in the Beatles canon, they would fit in that kind of era where it's like you hear how good they are, like technically, they're very talented. But that just allows them to have a good foundation to just build something really weird on top of.
Yeah,
he's
absolutely.
very good with that. The next song, Run It, again, another one that I put a star next to because I really, I really did enjoy this one. I really like the line, if you ain't too kind, you ain't my type. And I think that goes along well with Magic Bullet, because, it's kind of that sense of like, what's really going to solve the issues that we have is a little more empathy and some caring for your fellow human being. And I think when he says that line, if you ain't too kind, which means if you're not overly actively kind to people, then you're not my type. It's one thing to just, kind of keep to yourself and don't bother anybody else. But if you're not the kind of person that goes out of your way, like, if somebody's in front of you and drops their stack of papers, if you're not helping them pick that up, you're not my kind of person. If you just ignore somebody in a stressful situation and don't try to help them, you're not my kind of person. And that's
sorry,
the sense I got from this one. No, go ahead, what you were.
No, I was just going to pile on top of that and agree with this notion that, he's clearly got a lot to give. So he's someone who will attract a lot of people to him, and anyone that gives of themselves that freely, you kind of want people who are going to match your enthusiasm and your level of altruism. So if it's just someone who's there for the ride to be a hanger-on, they're not necessarily causing harm, but they're also not contributing to a greater good. Get the fuck out of here. Like, either help raise the tide for all the ships or quit dragging us down.
Yeah. It's really, I thought that one was really good. I was almost afraid it was going to be like a weird Chris Brown cover. When I saw the name of the song in the track list, I was like, please no. God, please no. Thank God I was incorrect. Again, I don't know where my mind was on that one. I probably smoked too many joints or something. I don't know. But I was just like, please, God, no.
Shit.
Next song, Wasted. This one, I was like, okay, My Morning Jacket can still rock on this one because the way, the riff is really good, but then the way they go into the after he says wasted, ooh, and they do the build, it's like that little breakdown they do after every verse. It's just very, very good. It's almost like a blues rock song. And I think this was kind of the most straightforward rock and roll song that they have on the album. And I thought this one was great.
This one has a little bit of fucking everything. The guitar work on it is impeccable. Like, the guitar solo is so much fun. I also have circled concert fodder. When we get back to live concerts and they can just play this for a crowd of people who've been smoking those fucking left-handed cigarettes, just chilling out. It's, 10:45 at night. Your eyes are slits. And they play this and you just disappear inside of it while they just groove. It is fucking built for that moment. The energy for this song absolutely, I think, has to be experienced in concert. It's tailor-made for it.
Yep. And I'm looking forward to it. I mean, they always come through Austin, so I'm looking forward to when they do with this album. I'm sure they'll play, like, this will probably be one because he does, I think when he plays live, he does like to have rock songs put in there that he can really stretch out. And this one, I think he can really stretch out if he felt like it. So I like that one. I like that one a lot.
Yeah. This one's got room to spare.
Yeah, and the next song, I think, as far as the message goes, is probably the most like close to home for me. The song called "Welcome Home," and it's just about, like when things are getting a little bit stressful, when you're feeling like things are, kind of getting out of control. You've always got a home base to go back to. A couple of the lines, all the times we had to fight just to find I was wrong, but you're still right. wrote a letter to me saying, welcome home. You know, it's always like you might have done some bad things or made some bad decisions, but you've always got a place to go back to. You've always got where you came from. And to me, you know, being in Texas for a number of years now, there's always that draw to be, you know, back home in Vermont, or at least in New England, you know, around the things that I'm familiar with, the people that I'm familiar with, you know, and it's this song where the first one spoke to you, that you were telling the story about in Boston with the girl that moved to LA. Like this one really spoke to me, about kind of how I feel with, you know, living away from home and how nice it'd be to go back, you know?
Yeah, for 100%. And there's also these great like themes of finding peace and renewal and revitalization that I think comes from coming home. You gain a different perspective. I've come home, launched a million times. I've talked about it on the podcast before. And it is, you, I think, change anytime you venture out into a new place, but you change just as much by coming back home again and having to audit what your home life used to be versus the person you are now. And you just can learn a lot about yourself. So there was a sweet nostalgia to the song. There was also a lot of introspection to it. And it was a really great, quiet, very stripped back singer-songwriter moment, almost like a Gordon Lightfoot song.
Mm-hmm.
Just a really nice, peaceful come down after something is big and balls to the wall is wasted.
Yeah. I like the Gordon Lightfoot reference. I like that a lot. And again, it adds to it because I used to listen to Gordon Lightfoot with my dad when I was little. I remember the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, the Don Quixote song I remember Tanner and I listened to the shit out of that Don Quixote song. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just one of those things that it's like always a little piece of you is still home, you know, and that's
if you could read my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and again, another lyrics, you know, and as the snow glazed all the trees, I let my thoughts float on with the breeze. The air rushed in my lungs, said to me, welcome home. You know, and it's like, if that doesn't sound like Vermont, you know, I don't know what does.
I was just, that's fucking Vermont, baby.
Yeah, it just gave me all sorts of warm fuzzies, you know, all sorts of warm fuzzies. And then the final song on the album, The First Time. Again, this one was a very Pink Floyd sounding song to me. You can tell he definitely, I think his contemporaries are more like Flaming Lips, you know, bands like that, maybe even like Fish, I guess, to an extent. You know, but you can tell they're all influenced by the same era of music, and this one just screamed Pink Floyd to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting. It was another one that I think lyrically didn't really go anywhere specifically, but I think made for a perfect album closer because it's more in the service of posing questions and leaving you with something to consider rather than making any kind of definitive statement. So like if the end of Abbey Road is in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. Mm-hmm. This is the exact opposite. This is just like kind of a big free-for-all sensation to wrap things up. And I thought stuck the landing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought this was a really good, the same way that Spinning My Wheels opened the album, the way that this one closed it. I feel like it was very kind of similar emotions where it's like you put on this how you're feeling, you know, like this, relate to this one how is best for you. Like whatever way you get the best emotion out of this one is how you should do it. I think he's very good at leaving his songs open like that, which I think makes it even more relatable. Where it's like, we may not know a lot about how he was actually feeling, but we know how it makes us feel, you know, and that is just as important when it comes to music, you know? And I think, for me, I'm going to go ahead and say stream it for this album as well. Especially if you're into the kind of dream pop and that kind of thing, this nails it.
Yeah. I'm going to say stream it too. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and also get into, I mentioned the New Basement tapes, as well as Monsters of Folk, two other projects he's been involved with. Get into both of those as well, because those were both very, very good. There's a great documentary on Showtime about the making of the New Basement tapes. So I would certainly suggest those to people to get into. Now, we're going to get into a little bit of familiar territory here. There is a new Bruce Springsteen single out called Ghosts. Now, this song kicks ass.
Now, are you sure? Are you sure it's a new Bruce Springsteen song? Because Close My Eyes, Don't Show Me the Album Artwork, this could have been classic Bruce. I mean, he has fucking distilled the classic Bruce sound to its barest essence with this song. Christ on the Cross, Jeff.
Oh, he is back with the heart-stopping, pants-dropping, hard-rocking, booty-shaking, love-making, earthquaking, Viagra-taking, justifying, death-defying, legendary E Street Band. This song fucks.
This song fucks hard.
Yeah.
And the thing is, to follow up on my whole thing about like, oh, it's classic Bruce and that's why it's good. To be clear, when a band or an artist starts off with a very recognizable sound and then they change it and they do something new, like My Morning Jacket did, that's fucking great. Mm-hmm. It becomes a problem when you transition to a new sound and it sucks. And I'm not saying that's what Bruce Springsteen did. He's always been extremely consistent. But that, I think, is more my point. It's not like, well, all artists should sound exactly how they sound when they come out with their first thing, and you never change and you never take a leap forward, and it's only good if it sounds like the original stuff we fell in love with. But anybody that kind of loses their way a little bit and then finds the thing that made everyone fall in love with them, that's a very positive thing. I don't think Bruce Springsteen ever got so far off the map with that. Like, imagine if he did like a whole rap album or something. What that would be like. Can you imagine?
I mean, it probably sound like Blinded by the Light, but just with a trap beat behind it. I wonder if anybody's done that. It sound pretty good, I think.
He's just like super behind the times. So it's just like super Sugar Hill Gang. I'm obsessed with Rapper's Delight right now for some reason.
I mean, it's a great song, and it's like 8 minutes long or something like that. So you got plenty. There's plenty there to unpack. I feel like the beauty of this song is it sounds so much like that kind of Born in the USA, Born to Run, Darkness on the Edge of Town era of the E Street Band, which really, I mean, you want to talk about a band at their absolute peak of their powers. I mean, they're extremely good now, but as far that kind of blew a hole into music itself when they started coming up with, you know, it's like there hadn't been other bands that really incorporated all of that instrumentation together consistently as a band before that. So it really, you know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but, you know, there's plenty of folks that had, you know, very keyboard driven songs. There's plenty of folks that had very guitar driven songs. There's plenty of folks that had very saxophone and like kind of brass instrument driven songs. The E Street Band brought all of that together and oftentimes on the same songs, you know, so it's really a very unique sound. You know, there's a lot of bands that have imitated it, and there's a lot of bands that they came up kind of at the same time with that sound similar to them, you know, kind of that Jersey Shore sound, but nobody does it like the E Street Band. And I think the beauty of this new single is you get that old feeling of the E Street Band, but these lyrics are very much, you know, with the perspective of being older. You know, he's not a 32-year-old guitar gunslinger anymore. You know, he's a 70-year-old grandfather. You know, it's, you know, there's a very different perspective, in the way that he does the lyrics for this still fits in so perfectly with, you know, the E Street Band mythos, but it's from the perspective of a guy that's seen an entire lifetime versus a guy that still had an entire one ahead of him.
Yeah, no, I mean, couldn't have said it better myself, and obviously I wouldn't even, you know, pretend that I could go toe-to-toe with you on Springsteen and Springsteen interpretation. But, I mean, that's the dope, man. That's the straight dope, is it's recapturing a classic sound, and like you said, it's just so full. It's so big. It's almost like orchestral, and every instrument is so distinctive and is like a character. Nothing gets lost in the shuffle. Nothing's sticking out where it shouldn't be. It's just like, I don't even think Bruce Springsteen, I mean, I can't speak to this, but, you know, someone like Steely Dan, Walter Becker, and Donald Fagen, notorious perfectionists, take after take after take after take after take to get one fucking snare hit right. And I don't think Bruce Springsteen, from what I understand, punished the E Street Band with sessions like that. But he might as well have, for how tightly plotted and sexily executed this song was. I mean, it
Yeah.
was like, holy shit. And his voice, for as like old as he sounded on Letter to You, and again, not like you fucking old bag of bones, but he sounded markedly older. He sounds like the young 30-year-old gunslinger on this song vocally. Like, the spirit is wiser, but I mean, the fucking fire is there. I am really, really looking forward to this album whenever he drops it.
This song, I mean, I liked Letter to You a lot. You know, when we talked about it, I think it was kind of very like cheesy lyrics. Like, this one brought me right back to the first time like that I heard Jungle Land, you know, when I, at a point in my life when I could understand it. You know, I was just from 6 to midnight immediately with this song.
Yeah.
I think a line, you know, the verse 2 for me, you know, was kind of an homage to the members of the E Street Band that, you know, have passed away. Clarence Clemens, Danny Federici. Old buckskin jacket you always wore hangs on the back of my bedroom door. Boots and the spurs you used to ride click down the hall but never arrive. You know, just that turn of phrase where it's like you can hear them in the music, but they're not coming back. You know, and I think this is kind of the homage to them of saying like, you're not forgotten. You know, you're still part of this as well.
Yeah, and in that sense, the song is a beautiful tribute to everything that lineup was able to accomplish together. So I really loved it. And again, it is going to be a big week for the Out on That Line podcast when that album comes out.
I mean, I don't know how many tracks are going to be on it. You know, if it's a standard, you know, 10 or 11 song album, you know, that'll be one thing. But if he comes out and does something like he did with Western Stars or The Promise album that he did, you know, if he comes out with like a double album, we might have to just dedicate a whole episode just to that. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. I think October 23rd, I think, is the date that this one's coming out. So look for us to do our discussion of that album that week, whenever it comes out. So, I mean, we're going to want that one hot off the press.
And it's just an EP instead. He just trolls us and it's 4 songs.
Yeah, he's already released the whole album. It's just these 2 songs.
Fuck.
Yeah. That jokester. Now to change gears a little bit here. You know, we were talking about Bruce Springsteen, but I think, you know, what we really want to talk about is a true master of music. Somebody that lyrically, musically is, you know, somebody that you'd put up there with like Bob Dylan. And then musically, somebody like a Mozart. I mean, I don't know if there really are contemporaries for this guy. And if you haven't figured it out already, I'm talking about Vin Diesel and the song Feel Like I Do. It's just beautiful. I was moved to tears. How did you feel about it, Alex?
Well, I mean, I couldn't agree more, Jeff. And all I'll say is that if you love his powerhouse acting, you're gonna love his music. I mean, it's a direct and literal translation.
You know, I hope people understand that we truly don't feel that way about Vin Diesel. But this song, I'm not going to knock Vin Diesel because I do love Fast and the Furious. Like, I love the Riddick movies. You know, certainly not going to knock him as a person, but goddamn, is he a terrible singer?
Holy fuck. Holy shit, dude. It's like when I was working at a gym in Manhattan, be like me going up to one of the fucking lunkhead clients there and being like, "Hey, will you sing into my iPhone so I can make a hit song out of this?" Okay. That's gold. That's gold, Franco.
Perfect.
We're gonna make millions.
It's perfect. Yeah, you know what? And I think, you know, kind of what I get from this, and he did the song with Kygo. I don't know if we mentioned that, but Kygo is a very prominent EDM DJ. Not overly familiar with all of his music. I just am familiar with that sound. You know, I was in college once and, you know, did some illicit things while listening to that music. But the lyrics are not terrible. You know, it's very strange. I don't know if he wrote them. But I'll read one here. Who goes out on a Tuesday night in this town? Bar is too quiet and the cover band is too loud. Step outside. I'm about to leave when you walk right on by and I'll just freeze. You know, and it's like, you can see that imagery and everything. Like, it's not groundbreaking lyrics or anything, but as far as lyrics you'd expect out of Vin Diesel, I feel like this is a lot better than anybody would have thought would come out of him. The voice doesn't carry it.
No. And the thing is, it's overproduced as hell. It's a completely generic song. Like, There's no, I mean, instrumentation, if you want to call it that. There's nothing distinct about the way that it sounds, other than it sounds like Sylvester Stallone dictating his last will and testament while he's like, dying, so waiting in line at a crowded Quiznos. You know what I mean?
That's such a good way to describe it. Because, yeah, his voice is like, if you watch his movies, he's got that very, very deep voice. And that's exactly his singing voice. Like there's no like hitting different pitches. There's no change in keys. Like it's just, he sings, he's like, I'm going to sing it in this register here. So you make the music match this, buddy. Cause it ain't changing.
This is about what I could do here.
You can tell that he clearly, and I don't know if people like know a lot about Vin Diesel, but he's a kind of a strange dude. He's really, really into video games. I think he's produced and made his own video game. I think he's like involved with bigger video game companies in their production. The video games that came out for the Chronicles of Riddick that were on like Xbox and Xbox 360 were actually very good games. They're very good video games. He was very involved in those getting made. So I think when he finds something he's passionate about, he really goes all in to do it, whether he's good at it or not. And I will say, Vin, I love you. I love your movies. You got to find a new avenue. Singing, I don't think is what you need to be doing. Because the song, like you said, the music is so generic. I think it's probably one that he just had that beat and he's like, yeah, you can use this one, Vin. Here you go. Like, put your lyrics on this and we'll put it out. Because I don't think Kygo needed the help, certainly, of having a Vin Diesel song. I think Vin Diesel was probably so excited about doing music that he just got Kygo to help him do this song.
And good for him if like it's a lifelong dream and he's passionate about it. And the thing is, I believe that he believes that this is a good song. Mm-hmm. And I think he probably had a ton of fun doing it. I mean, I read like some brief headline that was like, he says he's blessed to be able to do this. And I think he sincerely means that. It's not like a PR, gosh, I'm so blessed to be in a Marvel movie kind of statement. I think he's like, fuck, man, I got to do a song like a real singer. And I'm only going to do Stallone for him. But I guarantee he had a great time, and he's very proud of this. And that's awesome. But like I said about Taylor Swift, if this represents your best effort, don't quit your day job.
Yeah. And I mean, his day job is making Fast and the Furious movies. So that's great. I think with how seriously I think he probably took this song, he might really think the Fast and the Furious movies are documentaries about his actual family.
I think he might.
So I don't know. I like, more power to you, Vin. I'll listen to your next song when it comes out. We'll be happy to talk about it on the podcast again. If y'all really want a pleasurable experience, there is another video on YouTube of Mr. Vin Diesel doing a cover of the Rihanna song Stay. Now, if you're not familiar with that song, Rihanna is a very good vocalist, and I think that song requires a lot of vocal talent, the way she sings it. Talent that Vin Diesel does not have, but he certainly tries his best on this song, and it is worth the watch.
And again, it is like the manager of a Planet Fitness who's at a convention and has a couple drinks, and he's like, I'm going to get him to sing Stay. And everyone's like, oh, is he about to shock us all by being really good? And spoiler alert.
Nope.
He's not.
No, not. It's like the people when you're at a karaoke night and they try to sing like Let It Go, the song from Frozen. And you're just like, there's like 5 people in the world that have the register with which to hit that song, and they're all on Broadway. So I don't know what you think you're doing here that you're going to be able to hit that one. I'm not going to knock Vin Diesel as a person, but the song stinks. Like, the lyrics are okay, but the song stinks. It's just hysterical that he did it.
It's going to end up being like a funny piece of pop culture ephemera, like when Macho Man Randy Savage did a rap album.
Oh, God.
Have you heard that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. The Hulk Hogan diss track. Be a man, Hogan. Holy shit.
It's the cream of the crap.
And you know what? He wasn't terrible. It's funny because Macho Man Randy Savage is just a ridiculous human, or was a ridiculous human, R.I.P. Randy. But it wasn't terrible, like train wreck rap. It's just a little pathetic that like a 56-year-old man was like, I'm still mad at another 56-year-old man that I played pretend with. So we'll make a diss track, and he has no ability to respond.
Didn't he put his Hogan's real name, like Terry Bollea or whatever his real name is? He like said it on the album as like if it was a big like diss, like now people are gonna know who you really are.
Yeah, I think he in that song calls him Terry. Yeah,
it's just so good. It's just the thought process where it's like there was clearly nobody around to say no. Like when Vin Diesel was like, "I'm gonna make this song," and there was nobody around to be like, "I don't know, man." You know, I don't know if you're going to get it, if it's going to sound as good as you think it sounds.
And if you're going to be an action star and you're going to make the leap to music, I can't believe I'm saying this, but take a page out of Steven Seagal's book when he did Songs from the Crystal Cave. That's all guitar.
Yeah.
You know, as long as you're a competent instrumentalist, there's not a lot they can come at you for.
Yeah.
But if Steven Seagal was just suddenly like doing Gordon Lightfoot covers, we'd have a problem.
I would love to hear the song. If Steven Seagal, like, I want him to do his best introspective album. Like, you make it how you want, Steven. And I want to hear what he comes up with. He's probably going to talk about the rape cases. It wasn't his fault. She's lying.
That girl said she was 18. Yeah.
How he was when he was a police officer and driving that tank and killing all those chickens.
The night they drove all Dixie down.
It wasn't
the night
me.
I
I'll
killed
plead the
100
fifth.
chickens.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to hear the life story of Steven Seagal, the Skimbo Lounge, Alex's other podcast, did a great 5-part series on the Seagal himself. And it's an exercise. To me, it was an exercise in insanity, dedication, and Aikido.
Oh, yes, we did. We worked in the element of Aikido where you use your opponent's momentum against them to deliver unto them whoop-ass. This case being the listeners. So, yeah. If you enjoy being hate-fucked with pop culture, then listen.
It was great. Maybe sometime you guys can do an episode on Vin Diesel or just a Fast and the Furious episode. Yeah, I think that'd be good.
Keep cranking out the music, and we'll be forced to.
Well, I think we are running pretty low or running pretty long on time here. So, Alex, did you have anything else this week that you wanted to make sure we went over?
No, and wait, I do have a mini plug. I want you guys to listen to, I almost picked it for us to listen to, but it's very instrumental, which I think is a little hard to talk about when we do a lot of lyrical analysis and we don't really have the language of music theory. So independently, a little extracurricular activity for you guys. Look up Krungbin, Khrung. Yeah, Kruang. It's Kruang. Let me try that again. Khrungbin. Krungbin. And it looks like Kruangbin. The album is Mordecai. Hot fire. Check it out. If you do smoke weed, I recommend you doing it before you listen to this. You will go on a journey to the Crystal Cave and back. So Krungbin, Mordecai, stream it.
Beautiful. I think that's it for me as well. So until next time, we'll see you later. Thanks for listening.